Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. I hope everybody's doing great. I sound better. There's a little, not 100%, but you could hear my voice. But yeah, glad to be back. And yeah, let's do some painting. So today, in a piece of paper, just like this, maybe 8.5 by 11, or 9 by 12, we're gonna do our painting in the entire thing and build upon it, following one of our rules, remember, from light to dark, and being careful with the color we put down very lightly, to build like a little street scene and see what we can do. Okay. Sorry. So get your paints out, your brushes or brush. I only have one, and with the camera when it's trying to, you see, focus when I show you something. Okay. All right. So to get started, we know that there'll be some buildings, a street, maybe some people. Obviously, some people to give it life. We don't want an empty street scene. And then some trees on the corners and sides. And you will see how this builds and makes sense. And you build with the color making sense of it, okay? So we don't need much. We need sky, but not that much. We need a lot of the street, and buildings will cover things around, okay? Make sure you have all your colors. Um, And let's get started. I also have tissue you don't see on the camera and the water, obviously. So get water for the watercolors. All right. So as you can see, the paper is very big, and we have only one brush. Sometimes you will have more than one brush, and there'll be different sizes. And the big brush will obviously cover more space when you color, but most important is when you have to water the paper. Okay. With a brush like this takes you a long time, and maybe by the time you're done, it's dried already on the part that you started. So a big brush helps. You could also wet the paper if you need to with a tissue or paper, but we're not going to be wetting too much. Okay. Let's see. So let's start with making the sky around this area here. And we could actually draw, where we're going to have things with a pencil. So just to get a bare idea, but you won't see the pencil when I use it because we don't want the pencil to be seen that much. Um, yeah, let's use the pencil, and I'll ask when I submit the video that you get a pencil. Okay, so big building here in an angle like this. So angle coming down. Remember perspective, linear. We made a drawing like this a couple of months ago. Down side of the building, and then an angle in perspective to another building here smaller, so we could see some of the sky. And then back here, a street or a house. See, a little group of here sidewalk and the sidewalk here. Also, or actually, I pulled the sidewalk here, and this has no side. There is pencil there. Cannot emphasize it too much. I apologize. Usually, I draw very hard for you to see it on the video, but in watercolor, we don't want. It's okay if the pencil is seen, but you don't want it to be, too obvious. So unfortunately, again, you can see there's a line here in an angle, a straight line down, an angle. Same thing on this side, but smaller. Angle, angle, straight, and then two straight lines here in between, and a little oval here for sidewalk. Okay, so let's get started. Wetting this here for the sky, and not just the sky. I'm gonna put some treetops um, behind this house here. So it's the sky plus the treetops. If you notice, I'm only wetting the area that I'm going to make the sky of. So I'll grab my blue, and I just tap it, spread it very lightly. And you could do what we have learned in the past of leaving some areas blank to pretend they are clouds, you know. Remember? That's it. It looks very nice when you are done, when it dries up. This painting is going to be very organic and free. Okay. So let's do those treetops. I can clean my brush a little, not too much, because green has blue. If you notice, we're working on light colors building up because we're being careful. One top. It's like pine trees, like triangle. I'm going to emphasize the color a little more. Mm. The paper is really wet, so I understand how it's behaving. One more treetop, different sizes. Make sure they're different sizes, and not too much on this side because this house is not letting us see it. Great, that's it. We can go back to it because the paper was very wet. The green dissolved with the blue, a little bit of the sky. You know. Now the important thing, the buildings, maybe are in shadow, or we're gonna keep our shadows maybe in kind of like a light purple. But with the building, we'll choose maybe like a yellowish building overall, and then another one maybe reddish. But the ones anything in shadow in this picture will be on like a light purple, and that's very important to know because, like I said, we'll build those towards the end when we have our image. You could play with shadows more because you have everything already down, and um, Purple will be a tone that's dark, and as we have said, the dark goes at the end, goes later on. So let's get started with kind of like brownish, reddish um, house. Some of my green bled into the yellow, and we don't want that because then we don't have yellow. We'll have a different color. But I'm just waiting for the camera to react a little. There you go. To show you the sky and the greens. You see how simple? And the reason why this green is bleeding like that is because the paper was very wet. We may not have wanted that much. We may wanted these outlines here pronounced when the paper was already kind of dry. But the point of the sky having white of the paper left around for clouds, you get it? Okay, great. So, yellowish, reddish building, kind of like not too yellowish because I just realized we want the street to be a little more beige. You see, I put the color, and then I know that if anything happens where there's too much color, I could easily add more water. This is wet on dry. The paper is dry when we put the color, so we need a lot of more water. But it follows the rule that we have expressed where we are going to work on light colors first. Now I know I need to add a lot of more water to get rid of all that color that I put there. So it's all about controlling your water, how much pigment is in your brush, because you're going to keep spreading it if it's still in your brush. Just being aware of those things. Okay. Let's spread some of that in other, maybe in this house too. And what we're going to start doing is defining some things with this color, okay? So watch. A roof, maybe a little darker orange. So that maybe there's more shade down here. And I'm gonna bring it up a little, just a little. That's it. See how it's darker here at the bottom? Oops. Okay. So maybe some windows are here, but we're not gonna emphasize all of them, you know? A little bit here in this corner, a window here, a window here, the bore of a window, window here, window here, window here. Window here. Window here. Keep that angle. Remember the angle coming down? Maybe a little bit of the roof corner here and a little bit here. We don't want it all over the place, so another window here and here. Okay. We'll do more windows here. Maybe the uh, frame on some of this. Lighter here. Okay. On this side, I'm gonna go and start um, with the windows before I put the actual um, color of the walls. So I'm gonna grab some blue just to distinguish it a little, and I'm still gonna use brown. But now I put a window here, bigger. Oop, that's very dark. I still wanted my brown. 2 and 3. It's very wet. So 1, 2, and 3. Maybe a door here. I'm gonna kind of like frame things around a little so we know the roof is here. Frame or outline is what I mean. Maybe a window here that and something that casts. If you see, when I do lines, I don't completely finish them all. But let's make sure we kind of cover everything. So remember that whole floor yellowish I said I wanted to do? Kind of like beige. Let's try to do that color. Clean my brush, put a little water. I see it was going to have yellow. And more than orange. It's kind of like brown. Okay, lots of water. So I put yellow straight with a lot of water. because it's going to be very light. And now maybe a touch of the brownish, because it's not going to be all brown, but we need a lot of water because the paper is dry, and we want to make this color really transparent, so it has to have a lot of water, lots of water. When I say lots of water, don't be afraid. You know, many of you, when I look at your drawings, and don't take this, it takes practice to feel more confident, to loosen up and use more water. um, Even cover this area with the sidewalk, don't worry, with the yellow. And after the yellow is when we add our brownish tone to dirty that yellow. Okay, I need a lot of more water to make this yellow spread. Okay, yeah, so I can see on your work that you're hesitant to use water because um, when your pigment hits the paper, right, it's being absorbed, but there's not enough water. So I can see the paint is very dry. So in watercolor, you can see what you've done. You know, there's no escape. Even if it's right after it dries, you still see what the artists have done. So don't worry about using too much water. The paper is meant for that. You see how all the floor now is yellow, kind of yellowish, bright. So I could pick some of that up, maybe a little bit, right in the center with a tissue. Right in the center towards the left. What that does, and maybe I'll wet my tissue, just wet it, and I'll pick up some in this side of the building too. What it does is just creates a little of a highlight, you know, so it's wider. The paper actually shows. And your paper should be bending now, you know, because it's very wet. That's okay. I'm gonna clean my brush, but we have now the setup of like basically everything, where we're gonna put things on top of. All right. So I know I want some greens and things like that, and I could use them to block some corners of the painting, like here and maybe up here. So let me do with brown a trunk, and later we may put this in a shadow, so don't worry. That's the trunk. Some branches, remember the branches, V, V, and then on this side a small tree, so it comes up here, branch, 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 branch. You get the idea. I could use some of this dark. We're gonna create and add more shadows to this, everybody, okay? So it makes a little more sense. But the main branches and things like that, you can see them here. Okay. Yep. This I don't worry that much about because we're gonna build it with like the leaves. And here I'll show some of the leaves. Green, right? And on a side, kind of like we're gonna make patches. Some patches are bigger, you see, and build up. But there's a tree here, and it opens kind of like like an umbrella type of the center, towards the center, I should say. It builds a lot more. Okay. Maybe a little bit of them here, although the next ones I'm gonna do in shadow, so I'm not worried. But you can see some of the green. But I'm gonna go back here with purple because this tree may be in a shadow. Okay, so let's do some figures. I'm not gonna do cars, but some of the things you could do is poles, poles, telephone lines. Maybe we'll do a couple of telephone lines, um, cars, and then when you do the people, you do people that are walking. Maybe someone is walking a dog. Um, Maybe someone has a baby. Little things like that, and you keep them in perspective. So, all right. So we've been building from light to dark. Right, our colors are getting darker as we build up. But let's put some people. And again, those people will put a shadow on them, but let's add some color in their clothes and things like that. So you just do a figure, maybe in this brownish, and someone may have red, you know. And the way you do a figure, we practice in a video some figures is you do the head, the body's like a triangle or torso, and then the legs. And I know it looks like a stick figure, but we're going to build upon it by adding someone next to it or doing things. So another head here, I put some brown on this one next to it, and now these figures um, get a little more life seen. The one next to it here, coming down, maybe has a skirt. My idea here was to add color, and I forgot. But in these next ones here, maybe there's a smaller one here, and it's kind of hard when you have just one brush, let me tell you. So you want to have a couple of brushes, two or three. That way, right now, I would just pick up one and put the little color, not have to clean up one brush. But if you have one brush, that's okay. If you could acquire a second one, that's really good. So I clean my brush to make sure I add some color in this person's clothing. So there's a variety. But usually the head, there's someone here, and there's only a few people, but we could add more. Maybe someone is down here, and it has to be smaller because, right, we know the rule. All right, so we could add more people in a moment, but now let's focus on adding that shadow, the shade, which is going to be like a purple tone all over some areas, like this house maybe is casting a shadow. Okay. Um, and when I do certain things, you'll notice that I do them. How should I say? Not entirely. To do circle or curve, or I don't do the entire outline, I intermittently like kind of go around, and you can still see the shape, but it's not entirely. And we do that to create so the eye can finish it up, and not everything is um, alienated, like defined that clearly. Excuse me. So for that, we know we're gonna use kind of like a purplish color and play with the water to make it lighter or not. Okay. So wash. Clean my brush. This up here is my purple. If you don't have purple, you could create purple with red and blue. We know that. And let's start very lightly just to see how it looks. Maybe blue, a little more bluish purple. So I add blue. But I have a lot of water too. Okay. And I could start with this building, yeah. And see how it's becoming purplish. And I have to actually add a lot of water because this paper is dry. So now it's purple. Now we're going to cast some people's shadows. See her shadow, his shadow, the trees. We're going to put the building more shadow, especially up here. But remember the water. You see how it became more darker? We need water to light it down. Maybe in the windows. Some windows are really dark. You know. Maybe there's more shadow also here. I gotta water down a lot. And the reason you'll see why I'm emphasizing in here a little bluish in this corner is to emphasize the brightness here, because check this out. This angle here that we're gonna do now, see how it comes down in an angle? It makes the belief that the shadow is coming down in an angle, and it's more believable or more acceptable. And this whole part is, and I grab more water, but you get the idea. You see how now maybe there's a door here. Now let's do the tree, remember? And we'll do the streets in a moment, but the tree, actually, yeah, no. Let's do the streets, streets, later the trees. Okay, so very waterly. I'll come down here. And kind of give this a little definition that is a shadow, right? Same thing with, let's make sure this comes out and this person here. It's casting a darker shadow. You see how I grabbed the blue and I put it in a few spots? So here I may want to define this line a little more. Um, Maybe I want to define a little more lines here up above here. See? Okay. And look at this too. With this purplish bluish, we can make thinner lines to define certain things like frames. But the key here, like I said earlier, is not to um, complete the entire rectangle. Okay, you see that? How there's just lines around the windows? But I'm not like framing the entire thing. So it's very important leaving that kind of unfinished look creates for the eye. You the viewer finish it up. You know, maybe there's like something darker here. The floor here also needs some shading. I'm sorry, like and definition. Okay, so this is what I meant, just like we've been doing, where things are not completely finished. You know, and lines are, some of them are defined, some of them are not. So check this out. So we here create kind of like a view of a sidewalk. Look, the side of the sidewalk, side, side. But I never have to like finish the entire thing. See the sidewalk here where the person is walking. The line is not like extremely defined. See how we created some sidewalks, but they don't have to be extremely defined. And I could actually grab some tissue, wet it a little, not too much, and pick up some of this right here, of this yellow. So then there's a little distinguishedness between the yellow on the, you know, down here and the one down here. So this became on top here a little brighter. But let's keep putting shadows because we need to put shadows on the trees and maybe down here on the floor in this corner. You see? And this shade may be like trees leaves. So it goes a little bit in her shadow and little bumps, masses of shapes and little ones. Okay. Let's continue into the tree. With my purplish bluish. So anything you paint, and we'll finish with this. Um, let's say I paint like a tree, right? And I put one tone of green, which means only you see only one green. That's great and fine. The very you define the tree very well and everything. But the moment you add another tone, a lighter tone or a darker tone, the tree, excuse me, kind of comes to life. So right now we're adding a darker tone, which provides depth, in this case shadow, and I'm adding a lot of it into the center where the mass of the majority of the leaves will be, and a little bit outside because I still want to see that green. And I put some of the shadow also in the side of the tree because we know the light is coming from the top left, so I could shade the right side. And if you add another tone, so now there's green, shadow, and then a lighter one, then that even adds even more um, weight or body to the picture or what you're trying to represent. The whole tree trunk is going to be in shadow, so I'm going over it again. And I may make this very dark actually and make this tree really casting a very strong shadow. A lot of it is going to be very dark. I don't want to define this too much. I mean, define it with the colors. I'd rather make it darker to really counteract and be um, on top of what's under it. Let's give the people a little darker tone because they need to be casting a darker shadow. So I'm going over the people to make sure they're dark enough, you know, and making them darker like this make them stand out because they're so dark compared to the rest of the things. You see how they popped up a little more? So at this point, things that are really dark, like here, there should be a little more darkness. Um, but these are the last things, as you have noticed. And see what else you can do. Like I said, we could make um, street lines. I mean, I said I was gonna do them. Did I say I was gonna do them? Yeah, but I'm gonna take that back. Um, but you could do lines. Let's do them. Let's just to show you. So straight line here. My brush has to be wet enough, and there's a line coming here. Maybe there's a pole here. But this add little things to the picture. Another. You could put little um, papel picado or little flags on the poles, or you could put, like I said, a car. You could also put, I'm making this darker. Um, what else you could put? There's so many things. a drain, a sewer drain, a mailbox. Just control it because those things are not in every corner of the street. But trash can, mailbox, plants, flowers, flowers coming out of the window. Um, you know, something if I have thought about a little earlier is a little to add this yellow would have been to leave it untouched. So it would have been on the white. The yellow I'm adding right now, I'm putting it strategically on the areas that are lighter because we know yellow is a lighter color. It will disappear. You see it now on top of, look at this one. You see that on top of that green, but once it dries, the green overpowers it because it's darker. So these are the things. This is what I mean by at the end leave the dark colors to put in. So I'm putting it strategically the yellow on spots that are lighter in the paper. But anyway, if I had thought of a little plant when we did the tree, we would have left gaps in the paper, and in those gaps, then we put the yellow flowers of the tree. But yeah, maybe let's ground this a little more with some um, if I can do very watered down brownish orange lines, horizontals. You see how you can see that? That's okay. Here you can see a little bit, but the fact that I'm gonna add now a lot of more water should take care of it a little. Maybe down here, but you see I'm not going over this spot because it's different from down here. Maybe a little more here. But these horizontal lines ground things a little more. That's not very bright, so I'm going to clean my brush and water that down so it dissipates. Yeah, so these lines that I just made that are horizontal, what they just do is just ground the floor because without them, it was just a space of yellow. Okay, making our people's shadow a little stronger. You get the idea. Great. So this is it. This is our city scene. Some people you could add more. We could have chairs, people eating at a cafe. Oh yeah, that's another thing you could do. The little thing that goes over the door or at a store. The fabric kind of roof they sometimes have. So all these things add to the picture. This was Straden. Um, and what I was going to say, yeah, this angle here of the shadow casted by the roof itself. Um, I could have made this building not just purple, but yeah, sorry, purple, but a little also more darker. Kind of like you see how this it is purple, but it's kind of like a more dirty color. So added here, so this is really truly casted in a shadow. It's not that the wall is blue or purple, but that the whole side of the building is in a shadow. So you know, I'm just showing you here close up of how that tree looks with some green in it, so we know it's a tree. The windows that are defined but not defined with the lines. Remember the roof lines, the trees. The people are just basically stick figures, but they do cast a shadow, and the shadow grounds them. Maybe I'll add a little bit of a leg. That one is lifted too high, and the shadow here of the tree. I always like to show the whole thing closer, so you could pause it if you want. It will focus. Just give it a second. There you go. And here's the top of this building and the tree and the phone line. Okay, let's finish with this leg. So I hope you enjoy it and you continue painting. Yeah, in the meantime, though, not just for the classes, just do little sketches or things like that. Okay, as simple as it could be. You can see there's a little sense of light just because of the shadows we created and the yellow in this middle space. But I hope to see you all soon. Stay safe, healthy, and enjoy the good weather when it comes very soon. Um, the days are getting warmer. I'll see you all soon.